and you know, it's critical, like I said, for San Antonio. If San Antonio's coming down, not just the tourists, but San Antonio's coming downtown, then we'll be able to increase, you know, the amount of dollars being spent, not just tourism dollars. I want dollars from the rest of San Antonio, you know, to help support downtown and those areas, because we do have a lot of needs throughout the district. This is coming off of this past year's bond election. We have a new bond election coming up. You know, we should be able, hopefully, to capture the kind of dollars that we need to start the process of the miles of bad streets, miles of no curbs, and, you know, miles of no sidewalks that we have in District 1.
Thank you. Lauro Bustamante, should we be putting $20 million into Hemisphere when we have miles of bad curbs and bad sidewalks and bad streets?
It depends on how you use the money. I'm a big believer in free enterprise and small businesses, and I think that's what we should be attracting down the Hemisphere. If there's space there for businesses, we should be attracting small businesses and enterprises to come in. Now, the other problem, of course, is the bureaucracy involved in setting up a business. As a member of the advisory committee on the city council, we saw the bureaucracy, and one of the things that I would propose is that if we see a good business or a good you know, organization that wants to come in, then we fast track it. You know, we give them fee waivers, we expedite the permits, that sort of thing. Get more business down there. The federal courthouse is going to be moving, so that building's going to be vacant. Uses, I mean, charter schools, you know, are popping up everywhere. That may be a good place for a charter school. It's definitely a tourist attraction, and it's more of a tourist attraction than a local attraction. So I'd like to see more activity in there, like they do at the market. They have bands, they have entertainment. Security is also a problem, so we need to, you know, beef up security down there. I think it's an extension. The Hemisphere is an extension of the Riverwalk. It's also an extension. It would be a good connection for South Alamo there, which is the shops that are coming up on South Alamo, Southtown.
Let me just ask you quickly. I know, La Villita, in a way, has been sort of an experiment in making small businesses be downtown, even maybe when there isn't always the foot traffic to sustain them. So who's gonna shop at these small businesses? Who's gonna make sure that that just doesn't become sort of a social engineering project where we keep kind of just keeping them afloat?
That's why we have to open it up to free enterprise and small business, because it's a free enterprise and small businesses can come in and if they're going to make it, then they're going to compete, and if they're not going to make it, then they're going to leave. So if we have somebody in there that's just there just to be there, you know, just for the ambiance, you know, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. If we have somebody there that's for a purpose and it's serving the community with, you know, low prices that the locals can afford. In the Riverwalk, you know, local people can go down on the Riverwalk and catch a boat for, you know, like $3 discount. You know, so that's the kind of thing we need to develop downtown. We've done it. We've done it at the market. We can do it at Hemisphere.
Thank you. Diego Bernal, how would you like to see that $20 million leveraged at Hemisphere? Or would you do something else with it?
Well, I don't know that it's an either-or proposition. I think it might in some ways be a false dichotomy. It's like $20 million for Hemisphere or something else. I think that what's important about Hemisphere is that it has the potential to be a huge economic driver. So you invest money in something, you can get a lot more back and out of it. I think it's important that the development of Hemisphere is done in a way that it's for locals. I think that in some ways the city hasn't trusted the sort of taste or sophistication of locals enough and focused so much on tourists, and that's one reason why locals don't go downtown and spend money downtown. I think if Hemisphere is engineered in a way where it's catered to tourists, they go and spend their money there, tourists will come anyway. And then that generates funds, and then we may actually have more money. Not only will we have more tourists and maybe even contribute to the arts community and those things, but we also might have more money for sidewalks and streets and those sort of things. And it's not as if the city is staring at a pile of $20 million. That's all that it has. I think if it could be argued that it's a good investment, then it comes back to us.
What do you think is the right mix of things there? The city has talked about maybe there'd be more residences. We have Hemisphere across the street, right, which is some residences already. we've heard talk about a grocery store, we've heard talk about mixed retail. What would make it work, and so that it becomes a magnet and not just another hole we're trying to fill?
Well, the grocery store, I think, is sort of a separate issue, and I'm not sure that it would actually be located there. It might be. I think, one, green space is really, really important. People want a place to recreate, and people who live downtown want to have a downtown living experience like they've probably seen in other places. And green space, I think, is probably the cornerstone of that. And green space is a catchy phrase for open space, right? You don't need it to be planned to the nth power. It just needs to be open. I think whatever's there, it all has to be free, whether it's an art gallery, or maybe a big art complex where local artists, international artists can display their work side by side. Everything there has to be free, whether it's a museum. It has to be free, and it has to be attractive, but it can't be gaudy in the way that I think a lot of previous developments have been. It has to be, we have to look like a new millennium
I'm going to go to Carolyn Kelley here in just a sec, but give me an example of gaudy. Just
Well,
a real quick, exact. Come on, name names.
No, but I think let's take a. I don't think the for example, the Riverwalk or Market Square. I think at some point they were things. They were structures. They were places. They were destinations for people who lived here, and I think they've gone so far away from that you talk to someone who's lived here for many years. When's the last time you went to Riverwalk? And unless they go for a romantic stroll around Christmas time, a lot of them skip it altogether, or a Spurs championship victory. And so I think that if you start to move things away from being just for tourists, just for people who have no idea what San Antonio is like, you start to cater to the people who love this town and want to spend time downtown, then that's sort of what I mean, being less touristy, less kitschy, and more focused on locals.
Carolyn Kelley, Hemisphere, is that the right priority for the mayor for revitalizing downtown?
I want to get away from this, it's either this or nothing mentality. Hemisphere is a once-in-time opportunity for San Antonio. And the things that I would say are, it has to be magnificent. It has to be bold, and it has to be on the par of perhaps the Guggenheim in Bellevue, or the Sydney Bandshell. But what I want to talk about is the necessity in San Antonio of building a greater tax base. Not taxing, but building a greater tax base. And the only way that San Antonio can do that is to bring people into downtown, and District 1 is our focus. And the only way to do that is to create great urban amenities and to do the things that we are charged to do as council people, and that's make safer neighborhoods, repair this deferred maintenance in our infrastructure, create jobs, and that's exactly what we've spent 3 years doing in Tobin Hill.
Well, I know you'd say you don't want to have an either-or discussion, but it is true that if you spend that $20 million, you've spent that $20 million. We are going to have another bond election coming up in 2012. There's going to be a whole process to decide, but to a certain extent right now, if you spend that $20 million there, you're not spending it on streets and sidewalks, which people do consider a great public amenity, I think, when you're looking for a house, right? So,
yes.
And then you're telling me that maybe we also need a giant, amazing opera house or something at Hemisphere. So I'm hearing two different things from you. What are we doing here?
What I'm trying to communicate is that $20 million in Hemisphere also contains housing. I agree with Diego that we can create a great green space. We could create a place for the people who already live in San Antonio. We can create a place that will begin to mingle our guests and the people who live here, which is what happens in all great cities. And we can create enough momentum that we can put together a transit system that will bring people into downtown. On a nice day in most great cities, people grab their kids, their strollers, their blankets, their picnic basket, and they come into their downtown because it's theirs. And there's lots of things to do for lots of different tastes. And that's the vision of Hemisphere. and I support that vision. Whether or not it's 20 million or 15 million or 12 million, and you take another of that 8 million and you fix the most egregious things that are wrong in our neighborhoods, like the vicious stray dogs and the lack of code and permitting and zoning enforcement, is something that we can figure out. But it has to be done. Our neighborhoods are economic drivers waiting to happen. Some of them are beautifully historic neighborhoods. We're bringing ours back alive. And guess what? People are coming in. Businesses are coming in. The kinds of businesses that we want. Galleries and
you know what, I feel
wine
like,
bars.
You could go forever and ever.
Oh,
So I'm going
could.
to have you wrap up so we can move on to some other questions, like maybe those stray dogs.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Elaine Wolff. We're back with more from these District 1 City Council candidates and questions for them, but first 11:39 into the newsroom on KTSA.